is 2 p.m. and it looks like we do have a couple people in here if we want to get started. I'm not sure if slides were completely optional. I'm not sure if anyone prepared slides or wants to do any kind of start the conversation in any sort of way. But what I think would be beneficial is to go around and introduce ourselves just to get the conversation flowing a little bit. My name's Morgan. I am the communications intern at Renew Wisconsin. So I'm doing a lot of just summit logistics and things. Angie?
My name is Angie. I'm with Arch Electric. We are headquartered in Plymouth, Wisconsin. We also have an office in Madison and Milwaukee. We've been installing solar since 2003. So we've been around the block a few times. I work mostly on the residential side, helping homeowners with the process of deciding on a solar installation, do a little bit on small commercial as well.
Awesome. Jordan, do you want to go next?
Yeah, my name is Jordan Kaiser. I am a sales and design consultant for Northwind Solar. We're located in Amherst. We've been in business since 2007. We are staffed by our own electricians and installers and technicians. Everything's done in-house, full turnkey operation. We are a worker-owned cooperative. And so while we have 22, 23 employees, about 10 of us are member owners of the company, including myself. That happened back in 2017. And really we saw worker-owned cooperative model as a more sort of democratic way to do business and really align with our values independently. And I think it's really strengthened us as a company. And we just have really more invested into each project that we take on, whether it's a small residential 2 kilowatt system to a 500 kilowatt commercial system. Each system has one or multiple member owners on that site. So again, from start to finish, we just have more invested in the success of that project. We just finished the construction of our new headquarters in Amherst last spring and been operating out of our offices since, I guess, last April. So that's been exciting for us. We were originally in Stevens Point and now out here in Amherst. So it's nice being a part of a smaller community. Got a lot of businesses and help make Amherst, from what Michael Vickerman told us, Amherst is now the sort of solar capital of Wisconsin. There's more solar per capita in Amherst than there is anywhere else in the state of Wisconsin. And well, I mean, when you have 1,100 people and as much solar as there is, I guess it makes sense. So it's a fun fact. So yeah, past that, we work in everything from small residential systems to about mid-sized commercial systems and do plenty of work for nonprofits and governmental sectors as well. And yeah, I think that about covers it.
Awesome. Thanks, Jordan. Michael?
I'm Michael from Midwest Solar Power. Midwest Solar Power was founded in 2009 by Alec Rosenlund and Thomas Schlafer. Kind of focus on residential and up to medium-sized commercial. I am the Chief Operations Officer and Project Manager for residential and commercial projects at Midwest Solar Power. My background is in architectural technology and renewable energy, of course. So I kind of started in the industry, won't get too deep into it, but as basically trading renewable energy credits, working on the commodities side of things, but it turns out I'm not a good commodities broker because I am not, it's just not my strong suit. So I moved into installation. So I have experience in installation on the roof, in the field, project management, crew management on installations up to 320 kW, and project management and operations management. So if you have questions regarding structure integration or how to basically install on a structure, any structure, residential or commercial, that's kind of my forte. So.
Great, thanks, Michael. Stephen, do you want to introduce yourself? Oh, we can't hear you.
Try that. Hopefully it works a little better.
Yep, great.
Steve Fields with Myron Construction, business group leader, project manager, basically. We're a large general contractor for industrial and commercial, and mainly in Wisconsin, upper Midwest. So a lot of times on our large projects, we're subcontracting solar installers for a lot of our lead green projects. So just kind of tuning in to just get more knowledgeable.
Great, thanks, Steve. Michelle?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so this is like the first official time I actually spoke at all over the last 3 days. I'm more of a fly on the wall. So my name is Michelle. I work at Sun Badger Solar. We're in Milwaukee, and then also in Arlington Heights, Illinois, and then Minneapolis, and then actually opening kind of like trying to harness the Florida market as well, which is awesome for solar. So I'm really new to the industry. So again, why I'm sort of just like observing everything right now. So of course I've been in the solar installer room. I know you've seen me here the last couple of days, just trying to absorb knowledge and see what other people out there are doing. I was kind of orphaned by my old industry during COVID, so just needed to do something new, and so far so good. But yeah, completely overwhelmed and inundated with a ridiculous amount of information this week. So I'm looking forward to the weekend. It's really nice to meet you all. You guys really know your stuff, and I'm looking forward to being a more active participant in the years to come.
Awesome, thanks, Michelle. And Thomas? If you're here, Thomas, you might have to unmute yourself.
He might just be listening in.
Yeah.
Thomas Olson is actually a coworker of mine.
Oh, great. All right, well, thanks everyone for your introductions. I'm not sure if anyone has questions to start or any topics that they'd like to dive into, but feel free. It's a pretty informal conversation.
Yeah, so I don't know if anybody caught Jesse and Josh on the last discussion, but I think really we had a quick conversation here in the office about sort of the favorite utilities to deal with and what some of the utilities are doing well. And I think Jesse's answer kind of hit it on the head. It's like choosing your favorite natural disaster, and not necessarily calling in utilities natural disasters, but there's certainly none of them are perfect, and many are, I think all of them are far from it. But it'd be really interesting to see, especially with some of the work and cases going through the PSC over the next 12 months or so, as to what can sort of get changed for the positive. And I think one thing to acknowledge, I think it's easy to say from our standpoints, but I think it very well can be easier on the utilities as well, because I can't imagine they like getting, more and more phone calls driven from us and emails and, questions. I think all of that can be more alleviated with more uniform policy across the board. And I don't think it's that far of a step and a big of an ask to achieve that. I mean, we work with Wisconsin Public Service, Alliant, We Energies, XCEL, and a couple small cooperatives. And while they all have technically a monthly netting at their avoided cost rates, and certainly the rates differ slightly, just some of the requirements, especially with disconnects and with regards to capacity, DC and AC, is just ridiculous. And another thing that at least we have challenges with is keeping up when there are changes. There's just zero communication outwardly from the utilities as to, oh, we're changing this and we're adding this requirement as a disconnect, and this is going to change and that's going to change. We all get it retroactively, and then so when we're finding out this information on the back end of it, it can certainly make us as an installer and a contractor look foolish in the front of a customer when we've gone for X amount of years and saying, okay, we know this is how this works and this is how this is going to work, and then abruptly it's changed, and then we're having to sort of let the customer know, say, hey, I messed up because they're actually doing this now, when in fact it's just the utilities doing whatever they want, not communicating it. So I don't know about you folks and your experiences, but it'd be really nice to have sort of a sound communication channel, but also uniform policy across the board.
Yeah, I would definitely mimic that. I actually just got into a situation with We Energies in which I have a customer where he owns two homes that happen to be that the parcels happen to be touching, and so We Energies has told me that, and he's putting solar on both of those homes, separate tax keys, separate meters, everything. But because the parcels are touching, they're adding them together and putting it into a Category 2 installation. So
Wow.
I never would have guessed that they were going to do that, and I fought them on it. But there's, as you guys all know, you don't win when you fight the utilities typically. So yeah, so having uniformity across all, I mean, yeah, you guys work, you said you work in WPS, so they go off of DC capacity, just like We Energy is correct for determining category size, whereas every
Yes.
other utility,
They are, yeah, 20 kilowatts DC or under for net metering. Yeah.
right? And
And
whereas,
that brings up another point. Increasing those thresholds, I think, would be hugely advantageous.
yeah,
And along those tails, really specifically with We Energies, and I think Angie, you can speak to this even more than we can. Looking at integrating batteries in We Energies territory is a complete nightmare mechanically, especially with the mount and size disconnects they're requiring. Their process can be completely simplified if they would just go to a straight bidirectional meter instead of a line side connection, and doing away with their dual meters. And then it's allowing a battery system to tie in just as it does with WPS or Alliant. I don't know, Angie, like what do you see with like added costs, both in, equipment as well as labor to put batteries in We Energies?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. And I'd say, a lot of consumers, what they want is to just prepare for batteries to easily add it down the road. And that's really hard to do with We Energies because it's different type of metering for the grid tied versus storage. And they won't allow you to do the battery ready meter with too much time in advance. I mean, we're having issues now with just supply from Tesla on batteries. And so we're having to do the series wired meter and then come back and do the parallel meter later. And so it's just unnecessary additional costs that could definitely be avoided. Steve, do you have any specific questions while you've got us all on the line, or should we just keep
I
chatting?
have a question for you, Steve.
No, this is good. Just listening and learning. We do a little bit on the industrial side, and I've got one or two of the guys in the office here are thinking about putting solar on their own personal homes. So we've been talking in the background about whether or not it pays to put battery backup in right away or just go direct to the grid, and kind of sizes, and just doing a lot of listening. And a couple of the guys are listening in the background, trying to absorb some knowledge also.
Okay, great.
I mean,
Steve,
most
how
of
do
our
we go
installations
about-
I'm involved with go on like a school or a municipal building or something on that order that we're building.
I have a question, Steve. How can we, specifically Northwind Solar, what can we do to get more solar on Myron projects? Is there any sort of avenue we can take and making ourselves more available to you folks? I mean, I go by your building all the time in Appleton. You guys do a ton of good work, and a lot of potential for solar. So what is a good avenue to take to sort of see what relationship can be built?
Teresa in our office up there is kind of our main contact for all of our green construction lead type projects. Getting in with our estimating department, a lot of those, I just say probably a good 50% of our projects that get solar on them are probably hard bids. So they go through our standard bidding process in our estimating department. And a lot of that is basically public, or we'll take bids from anybody off the street. So you can actually go to our plan room online and look at our projects, just myron.com, and go to our projects and get involved with our estimating, or sign up that whenever there's a project with solar or your division, you'd actually get emailed or contacted that there's an opportunity, and you can go in our plan room and look and see if it's something you want to bid on. So
Perfect.
that's definitely something you could just log in on our website and go look at.
Awesome.
But otherwise, Teresa in our office would be one to contact to just She's involved with USGBC and with Renew and stuff quite a bit. That she'd be the one to contact, and she could probably help you out a little better on. I'm out of our Madison office. I'm more on the industrial end with the equipment installation. So the civil side up in Neenah is kind of the area that would probably be best for you to contact.
Great, thank you.
That helps out a little bit.
As far as, you know, for your home or anybody else in your office that are looking to have solar, so you're down in Madison, I'd certainly recommend talking to Michael about helping out down there. They're a reputable company. or Arch for that matter, because I know they have an office in Madison too. So those two folks can help you.
Perfect, thank you. I might have to get some
Angie,
contact
forgot about
information
your
after this.
Madison office.
I might have to get some contact information at the end of this meeting then.
Yeah, reach out to us anytime. Always happy to quote projects and see what we can do. So.
Perfect.
I actually have a question for the solar installers. Now that we're seeing a change in administration on the federal level, how do you guys expect that, if at all, to impact your work? Hopefully for the better, but do you expect that to have any sort of impact on the way you do things?
Oh yeah, I can go. It's interesting if you think about it. When chaos and uncertainty ensues, more folks or many folks may inquire, you know, about putting on solar for resiliency. I mean, battery inquiries sort of exploded last year just because people are worried, like what's happening next? What is this guy going to say next? What's going to burn down next, right? So battery storage and resiliency really became a theme based on chaos. So there's that side of it. You can look at, you know, maybe that almost helped the residential market along to a certain degree. But the other side of it is certainty. You know, we see that with the Focus on Energy program. When we know what the program is, we know what those incentives look like, we can easily communicate them. I think it makes folks more comfortable making a large investment in solar. And I think that's what this administration certainly can bring, is certainty and less chaos. So I think, you know, in looking also at the market and the economy, folks know what to anticipate. If there's a plan, if there's a sound, cohesive, coherent plan about whatever is going to take place going forward, people can, you know, direct their lives accordingly. So I think that also plays the advantage of solar, renewable energy, and certainly energy storage. So, you know, maybe that's why I many times come back to the fact that solar can span that proverbial aisle. You know, solar can provide ecological benefits as well as a financial, sound financial investment long term. So that's many things that most people on both sides of that aisle can get on board with. And then so looking also in terms of leadership, whatever's happening, solar and renewable energy can really span that aisle and provide something sound and substantial for folks in both certain and uncertain times. So I would guess that it's going to be more of a positive, certainly with the tax credit being extended and stayed at 26%, that only helps. Again, that gains us certainty. Focus on Energy and announcing their program and potentially, you know, increasing the budget, that helps as well. So I think that really helps guard against the solar coaster as we've all come to know it, and allows us to do business in a more you know, planned, pragmatic way.
Yeah, I will say definitely pleased to see the tax credit get extended. I think that, again, yeah, that really helps add some certainty, especially for commercial projects specifically that might be months, potentially a year plus in development. I think that can really help. But I feel like in Wisconsin, as far as the strides that we can make, they're not so much on the federal level. They're really on like local government, municipalities, on that level that we can really make strides that are going to at least affect, especially residential solar. I'm thinking net metering policies that hopefully we can push through the PSC now that things are a little bit better than they have been in the past. So there's a lot of state level. I mean, like Focus on Energy is a state level program, right? So there's a lot of state level incentives and programs that we could be working on, getting basically permitting to be more uniform would be one great thing to work towards. You know, those are kind of my areas of focus. The federal level, I guess I don't know if we have that much control over what they're going to do, but love to see them continue to extend the tax credit. So.
Yeah, I think we were all celebrating that extension at the end of 2020. Steve, if you're not aware, but it was squeezed into the budget right at the end of the year. So that was great to see, which is certainly going to help just maintain the market here and give us that assurance. But I would also add that there's a lot of work to be done on just the local level. Hopefully we'll see improvements with the PSC, with Tyler Hubner, third-party ownership, things like that, that would just really help grow the local market more.
I know we do a lot of work through the Focus on Energy, so seeing that budget increase would help us out also. We're actually Focus on Energy's largest customer in the state of Wisconsin.
Oh, good to know.
Michael, I kind of have, oh, go ahead.
Steve, what was last year like for an industrial commercial contractor like yourselves? Did you see a contraction of the market, or did you have a lot of your projects just sort of keep trudging forward?
We were very fortunate in that we're very diversified. So when we saw one area contract a little bit, we saw other areas explode because of it. With everybody staying home and not going out to eat, we saw a lot of our food processing customers, canning factories, a lot of places, they wanted to put in lines and expand like crazy. So actually last year was a record year for us. We saw a slight dip in that March, April, but then it just exploded for us. We were deemed essential workers with a lot of our hospital work, food work, and in a lot of the schools, when they closed down early, they wanted us to come in and knock out their projects and remodels. So it's like COVID was, we were a little bit of a beneficiary for that. So we were blessed that way, that we were able to still keep going. So, and like you saw, there was a lot of record school referendums this year. So we were fortunate and won quite a few of those. So we got a good backlog going into the next year already.
Interesting.
Hey, Michael, go ahead.
I was just going to ask Michael, as far as utilities, I assume you're primarily dealing with MG&E, or do you kind of branch outside of Madison a fair amount?
MG&E, Alliant Energy, we've done some work in XCEL territory. I obviously used to work in XCEL territory as well when I worked with Ethos. And then, yeah, we have some munis and co-ops in the area. We just had someone contact us from Adams Columbia co-op, which is a co-op that has a really, really bad net metering policy. So there's, but yeah, primarily MG&E and Alliant Energy are two major, and actually MG&E is great. And then we do work in the energies territory as well.
If you don't have space for that Adams Columbia contact, you can certainly send them our way. We'd be happy to take them on. Plenty of experience dealing with them.
For anyone that just joined, feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question, or you can type it in the chat.
I have a couple questions. This is Helen May. I am at SC Johnson in southeastern Wisconsin. We're looking at a solar array. We've got a lot of other forms of green energy, but solar is kind of one of our last holdouts. And I guess our concerns are slightly different. But one, in all the solar arrays that get installed, does anyone ever talk about the visual impact? Like if we're replacing, natural vegetation and trees with now solar panels, like are there better ways to do it, or are there landscape architects that get involved that can help you do it well, or is it just, are there better looking ones than others?
I'm assuming, Helen, you're talking about a larger ground mount array installation. Is this for a commercial?
Yeah, it's for a commercial manufacturing facility. It's we're limited. I mean, we have a ton of rooftop space, but there's a lot of concern because, if there's anything that would ever shut down a manufacturing line, we're trying to, if we were to locate it on our rooftop, it has to be away from manufacturing space, just in the event that there was any issue with it. The cost of production, if we shut down because of something that wasn't related to production, would be a huge impact to us. So there are certain areas of the rooftop we're looking at, but the primary spaces we're looking at are fairly large, like a maybe 20 to 30 acre area. But it replaces a lot of natural vegetation, and I guess I'm just wondering, are there ways to do it well, or?
Well, there are actually contractors that will go in and plant pollinator habitat in between the rows of ground mount installations. There's also companies that you can hire out to do natural grazing between the rows of solar panels. I'm originally from Viroqua, Wisconsin, and our co-op out there actually has kind of pollinator plantings in their ground mount array, and does grazing with sheep between the rows of solar panels. So there are some things that you can do to kind of minimize that impact, and that pollinator habitat is actually really important. You can do things like, if aesthetics are kind of everyone views aesthetics a little bit differently. I think, some people might say, well, if you went with a black frame panel with a black back sheet, that could improve your aesthetics. But it just depends. You could always reach out to a contractor and ask for a couple kind of visual representations of projects that they've done in the past, so that you can kind of get an idea of, okay, this is what this ground mount racking looks like, and this is what this panel type looks like, because there are lots of options out there. So.
Okay. Are there ever any like community reservations or complaints in installing? Because I know it's different because the community doesn't benefit from this. So as far as just changing.
Yeah, Angie, I don't know if you want to take that, because you guys won the MATC project, didn't you, in Fort Atkinson?
Yeah, there, you can definitely hear opposition with projects. I wouldn't say it's super common. It usually gets worked out. I mean, there are solar access laws in place that you can't really prevent anybody from installing a solar, but you also don't want to piss off your neighbors. And a lot of times it will just be like at a plan commission meeting that if the community has any opposition, that would be their time to address it, and working more directly with the contractors to meet the requests of the community. But I've always seen it get worked out. I don't know if Jordan, if you've had any other experience different than that, or challenges that you've had to overcome.
Yeah, I think Michael hit it right on the head. There's plenty of ways to amend the the areas with pollinator plants, different natural prairie grasses. We've done that on a handful of projects. Really worked out well, and you can actually utilize the space even better than it is at the moment. So I think it's just about thinking big with it. Like let's evolve our thinking on what solar is, especially if you're taking up a space. I don't know too many places where they're deforestating the area to put up solar arrays. Usually it's a whether it's a brown field or just a flat acreage where solar commercial and utility scale arrays are going in. And it's also important to consider that Helen made a comment that the community isn't benefiting from it. I'd argue that the community is benefiting from it because you're reducing emissions. Now, and one thing to consider is that when you're not using the energy, if it's net metered, the energy is being backfed through the meter, not on the grid, and goes to your neighbor essentially, right? So there is that benefit of clean energy, and then past that, reducing emissions from that power plant, wherever that power plant may be. So folks who are living close to that power plant are directly benefiting, not in addition to our air, our soil, and our water. So I believe the community, all the community benefits, even if it's just the solar is offsetting your bills, the external community outside of your building, your home, your workspace is benefiting. So again, it's just about thinking big with this. Aesthetics are hard to get past. A solar panel is a solar panel. Yeah, you can get a black one and maybe it looks more sleek, but it's really in the eye of the beholder. But ultimately, I mean, what do we care to look at more? A power plant puffing out steam and smoke and polluting our air and water, or some sleek looking, innovative looking solar modules that really are sexy and magical,
Perfect. All right. Thank you, guys.
Helen, I did think of there is a sunflower solar farm in Delavan that's kind of close to your area. I'm sure if you just Googled it, you could probably find information on the exact location if you were ever interested in just doing a drive-by and seeing a local project of what's been done.
Sure. Thank you.
Has anybody done a project where you've taken existing employee parking lot and put a simple canopy over it and then put all solar on top of that so that you're not using any additional green space?
Yep. Their carports are definitely becoming more common. Can be a
Is that
little
the
more
benefit?
challenging structurally, but we're seeing more of that.
I was gonna say, I see a lot of that when I travel down to Arizona for projects that they're putting a lot of carports. That way the employees get a benefit of parking, not being out in the
Hey, there
winter.
you go.
And they're generating electricity on top of the carport.
Is it
Got
like
some
double the
EV
cost
chargers
though
under
of a
there,
ground?
Jordan?
Yeah, those aren't technically carports; they're adjustable pole mounts, but they act as the same purpose when they're tipped, more shallowly. So, but yeah, we've done here at our facility as well as a number of other ones in the area.
Are they like double the cost, or how do they of a ground mount or a roof mount?
I mean, I don't think they're double. A ground mount, at least residentially, can add 20 to 40% more in cost depending on the system size. Now, the larger you get, the lower that addition is. Angie touched on it. There's a lot that goes in the engineering of them. If you're working with a building contractor like a Myron, some of those costs sort of be alleviated. Maybe they can do some of that engineering, some of that work, and alleviate the cost of the solar itself. So there's ways to work around that. And if you're looking at it more on a large commercial or even industrial scale, a carport really can shake out in terms of dollars and cents when you're achieving those economies of scale. So it's all relative.
Okay, thank you.
Just another option when you're thinking large.
No, we were looking at that actually, but it seemed like the cost was quite a bit more.
Yeah, they can.
And we also have delivery trucks and things like that we'd have to think of.
Yeah, I mean, when you're building an infrastructure, a lot just, between concrete and steel, aluminum structures just to affix solar modules to, there's a lot more that goes into it as compared to a roof mounted system. Whereas, your roof, your building is the structure to mount on. So those are the costs you're saving. So really with us, if we can get it on the rooftop, that's going to be your most cost-effective approach to this. Even with some of the challenges you talked about, Helen, I still think it's a good idea to at least investigate some of the parts of your roof where it could possibly work. maybe even doing a combination system, maybe utilizing the roof space that you see is viable, and then maybe that decreases the amount of ground mount area you have to take up. That probably brings you down to a lower cost per watt and achieves the same level of performance.
Are older buildings, do they ever have to be retrofit to support the load, or is it usually a low enough weight load?
Yes and no. Some of them do. Really depends on the roof structure and what the loading was engineered at to maintain. I mean, a solar array residentially is going to add somewhere around 3.5 pounds per square foot. A commercial array, if it's a ballasted system, can be somewhere around 7 pounds per square foot, maybe a little more. So it's certainly something that there's going to be some advanced engineering that will have to be reviewed and considered. Some rooftops have the load capability, some don't, and would have to be fortified. So that's all part of the, at least with what we do, part of the commercial process in looking at the viability of a rooftop array.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if you guys want to share a little bit more on your experiences as well.
Yeah, I mean, my experience in the commercial sector is, I mean, in the commercial sector, I actually have, as long as you're doing a fairly low tilt, like a 10-degree slope, you can pretty much make that work on almost any roof because your ballast loads are much lower. If you're trying to do, like, I don't know if you guys do like 15 or 20-degree tilt systems, ballast loads get a little bit higher. But typically, my experience has been that on commercial roofs, there's almost always a way to make the engineering shake out. You just might have to make some tilt adjustments, but typically we can make it work. So.
Yeah, I think we had one in this, it was a small system on a very old building where the roof was not sufficient for the load, even being a 10-degree pitch on the array. We're happy, obviously, we took the steps to work with our engineer on it. But like you said, Michael, it's rare that you encounter a commercial rooftop that can't handle the load. And Helen and Steve and whomever else, the equipment that's going on the roof is lightweight. Like a single solar module is somewhere between 40 to 50 pounds. It's made up of aluminum framing, as well as the racking a lot of times is aluminum. So it's lightweight components and hardware, not really contributing to a significant load on the roof. You certainly want to do your homework and due diligence to make sure it's done correctly. But like Michael said, it's rare where you can't make the engineering shake out appropriately.
Thank you.
You should do it though. You should totally put solar in for your facility. I think it's a great idea.
Oh, we are. We've got everything else. We've got the best
Awesome.
wind turbines in southeastern Wisconsin, and we've got landfill gas energy and geothermal. So it's our only holdout.
So you did wind systems and geothermal before solar?
Yep.
Wow. Well, if you made those work, you can certainly make solar work. That's the easy one.
That's what I thought. I've been fighting it since I got here, but now they're there. So.
Well, call up Angie, and she's awesome, and maybe she or one of her colleagues can help on the commercial side. They'll do a great job.
Yes, please do.
We're working with Madison Solar to help us put together our RFP. So.
Okay. Well, we will keep our eye out for it.
Great.
How we do, Morgan?
We're doing good. We still have like 20 minutes-ish left. If people have more questions. I had a follow-up from Michael from a while ago. You were talking about some issues on the local level. What are some of like the biggest barriers really on like a local or municipal level that you experience with solar, whether it's net metering policies or just public opposition or things like that?
I mean, some of the issues are all different depending on where you are, right? Some of the issues are permitting. For example, Madison has one of the most difficult permitting processes, actually the most difficult permitting process of any area that I've worked in. They have some requirements that I think are really important, and some requirements that I think are completely useless, basically, like providing an elevation drawing of the solar, as if Madison zoning has the authority to deny a solar installation, which they do not, and they have not, which I know because I've asked. So like so that's permitting issues, and that can be different depending on the jurisdiction that you're working in. If we could get, and I know it's been worked on in the past, but if we could get basically all permitting authorities to agree to expedited permitting packaging process for solar installations, that would be excellent and would make things much easier. Some of the other issues on local levels, a lot have to do with actually getting inspections. Inspectors maybe not actually being well educated on solar installations, which kind of can lead to more problems with getting the installation to final approval, and can just increase that time. If you have to reach out to the state level and ask for a ruling from the state, that can really increase the amount of time. So inspector education, and then on kind of to Jordan's point, getting all the utilities on the same page, from a point of view of even net metering policies, or even just PSC applications, and how people, how different utilities view, like I was discussing before, like maybe you have two sites that are joint, owned by the same owner, but different meters. Well, the utility shouldn't be able to add those two systems together to change the category size, and change, which then changes insurance requirements, etc. for that system. So sorry if I rambled a little bit on that.
No problem. Jordan, Angie, do you kind of see similar things in where you're located?
I mean, a streamlined process would definitely be helpful. Same expectations for utilities across the board would be great. I think probably one of the most frustrating things that we've witnessed down like We Energy's territory is around the third-party ownership. That's not an option throughout the state, but now We Energies is doing it. So just having a level and fair playing field.
Yeah, permitting is such an interesting thing in our area. Josh touched on it in the last discussion, that we're obviously more rural in our area, and there's plenty of local municipalities and AHJs that don't know what you're talking about when you call and say you're going to install a solar power system. B, have heard of it but have no policy as to what the permitting should be. Or C, defer to maybe the county level. There's been plenty of times where we've been required to get a permit by whomever, and the inspectors come out and said, this happened in Wausau, for instance. The city inspector for Wausau had come out and said, well, I don't know what I'm even looking at. I was hoping you could kind of show me around. I'm here to learn. He said he's here to learn. So getting these folks, and I don't, who tells them what to do and what they should be looking at. We're told we have to get a permit. Shouldn't they be the ones to do their job and make the permit worthwhile, making sure it's up to their whatever standards are being set? We've had, in Stephen's point years ago, the old inspector, there were many times where he'd pull up alongside of the road, stick his head out the window and says, yep, looks good, and drive on, and not even get out of the truck. So, there's this level of education that I think needs to happen at the municipal level as to if there is an inspection or if there's a permit required, and what are they looking at the inspection. And then we get into other places. Marshfield, for instance, has got this one fellow who's cantankerous and ornery, and I don't know, I think he drinks brandy for his morning breakfast, but it also gets very picky and aggravated at most anything. He knows us now, and he knows we do good work, so he kind of knows what to expect. But he used to be almost overly, regulative of our work. So it's like trying to, we feel we do top-notch work at all times. We're not necessarily worried about it. It's just trying to like know what to expect sometimes. And then you get into instances like We Energies, where there's this nexus now that the authority having jurisdiction many times doesn't even require a permit, but the utility does. And so we had to like bridge this gap of communication between the utility and the municipality, saying, I know you don't require a permit, but the utility is, can you still come out and inspect our work just for the sake of utility approval? And dealing with We Energies is a complete headache, because there's multiple like visits and power-ups and reviews and approvals and inspections. It's completely ridiculous. I mean, a 3 kilowatt solar system can cost you like $1,000 in permits and time and travel just to get it approved. It's just completely ridiculous. So it all comes, I think it's kind of on the trend that Wisconsin just seems to lag in many things, fashion and culture and food, and throw solar in all of that, because it's taken so damn long to get this far with permitting and utility regulation and structure, and we're getting there. We've taken plenty of strides, but we seem to have such a long way to go. I think we'll get there. It's just kind of frustrating to see that all of us collectively still to this day have to put in this much time and effort to get these people on board and saying, hey, how do we streamline this? How do we make this more efficient for everybody, not just us as solar installers? But maybe that's part of the wages we earn. We have to deal with that sort of headache. I don't know.
Jordan, if it'll help you out, being a general contractor, and we've been doing this for 103 years, we get stroked around just as much as you do at City Hall.
I believe it.
For 103 years, it hasn't gotten a whole lot better, so you're just part of the club now.
Yeah.
I can't get the same advice out of an electrical inspector. If I install them 3 pieces of equipment, identical in a row, 3 years in a row, I'll have different requirements on each piece of equipment.
Yeah.
If we copy the one we installed last year, he'll come and make us change the one we're installing this year. So don't feel bad. It's not just your industry.
Yeah, frustration is one thing. The real problems come when you enter a situation like that, which we have similarly, having to do maybe with a commercial project, and there maybe happened with a CT cabinet in Alliant Energy territory, where we'd gone through hours of work and communication with the utility as to how we can actually interconnect the system. And it was determined we needed to upsize a transformer and a CT cabinet, and we did that, and we did this. And so then at that point, we thought we had the process down. Well, like a year later, we had a similar sized system. We basically went ahead and thinking we knew what to do. Well, fast forward to us like going forward with the installation, installing the system and wiring it together. The utility coming out and saying, no, it has to be done a different way. And it cost us like thousands of dollars. And it was just because I can't remember if they made a change or they didn't make it. Something happened on their end that they didn't communicate and caught us, and we lost money on the project. So yeah, it's like chasing rabbits around. It's ridiculous sometimes.
100% get it, but it's just not you, so don't feel bad.
Yeah, well, and that kind of goes back to like utilities, making sure that all of the utilities are on the same page, right? And actually doing their technical review in some cases. Like with Alliant Energy, I had a project where we had been approved. We went through technical review, and a master electrician came out to site and actually said he happened to look up at the transformer that was on the pole, and he said, this transformer is actually too small. Alliant should have caught this, and we can't do this project until Alliant actually upsizes that transformer. I mean, that's just kind of disregard for process and not actually doing the technical review, and that's an issue that kind of needs to get resolved. Because we put trust in the utilities when they do a technical review, we expect that, especially if we're paying a category 2 application fee, we expect that they're actually doing their technical reviews, and that they're responsible for their end of the system. So.
Yeah, especially with identifying their equipment. You're 100% right. We had a similar issue with XCEL Energy, in that it was interesting because it had to do with two parcels side by side, owned by the same person, and we actually trenched DC across from one parcel to the other. So knowing that this is what the client wanted done, I called the head of the utility, talked through it, and actually got approval for it. Got a number. I got approval. A second approval. I got it in writing. I did all this diligence leading up to it. Fast forward, went to submit the DG, and the guy who processes their technical applications said, no, we couldn't. I said, well, I have it in writing from one of your XCEL employees, one of your colleagues saying we can. He came back to me and said, okay, well, since you did that and he gave approval this one time, you can do that. But it's just these internal workings as to how are they so far off of the same page. It's unbelievable. Not that any company is perfect. We're not perfect, but man, we're on the same page with 95% of what we're doing. So you would expect somebody like that, especially with something that can be dangerous with electricity, that they would be closer to what they are. But I guess that's what you get with natural monopolies,
In a sense, you're basically working with the government. It's just like calling the IRS and asking a question, right?
Are there any states that you know of that have a streamlined process or like a much better model than Wisconsin does in terms of solar installation? Or is it just kind of on a national level, just nobody's really perfected it yet?
From my end traveling, if I go and work with electrical permitting and stuff, it's all over the board. It's no different. It's actually sometimes it's easier to do stuff here in Wisconsin than Arizona. I can tell you that. It's a lot easier here, if that makes you feel better.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to look at it. I think probably every state has their own set of challenges. I've heard Minnesota on the state side of things can be easy to deal with. XCEL, if you're dealing with XCEL in Minnesota, is a total headache. Illinois has some certain advantages and disadvantages. Yeah, I don't know. To me, it's just about, you can see how it can and should be done. What's impeding us from getting there? So to me, it's not even so much about what other states are doing. They may have the same headaches that we have, but if you can see the answers, why aren't we doing it that way, right? Like, let's just get there. Let's make it happen.
A lot of it's the bureaucracy. When you get into the larger cities, everybody's trying to get their finger into everything as far as all the committees and zoning and permitting. And I mean, you can get a permit from one department and then somebody else also needs a review of it, where just the bigger the city, the more challenging it gets. So if you're staying rural, it's a heck of a lot easier.
That's why we moved to Amherst.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody has questions around here.
Anything north of Madison, Milwaukee is a lot easier.
There was someone that had put together a expedited permitting process that I think was specifically intended for like small munis. It's been a while since I looked at it and since I reviewed it, but I do believe that there were some states that were working on adopting that or had adopted it specifically for permitting solar installations. So I do believe that granted, I don't have those states off the top of my head, but I do believe there are states out there that have streamlined the permitting process for solar installations.
Milwaukee actually has that. So that's helpful.
Yeah, you guys have adopted.
Yeah. What's taking Madison so long?
It's going to be a while.
Yeah, I've heard
State of Madison.
Right, well, we are coming up on time. If anyone has any last minute questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm not sure if our moderators would be comfortable putting their emails in the chat in case anybody has any questions kind of after the fact. But I do just want to say thank you for coming to our 10th annual Renewable Energy Summit. I think we've really enjoyed connecting with you and everyone else over the past few days. And thank you to our sponsors, especially to Arch Electric, Green Penny, and Invenergy, and all of our speakers and panelists, and you guys. We hope that next year we can connect in person, but we would love your feedback on this virtual event. So we'll be emailing you an evaluation tomorrow to hopefully figure out what we did right and how we can improve. So thank you for spending the last 3 days with us, and thank you for your work in advancing renewable energy.
Thanks, Morgan. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.